The space station hallways. They came from many different worlds. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like insects. Some looked like nothing Ji-yeon had ever seen before. G-Y Eon Park was a human woman. She was 32 years old. She had black hair tied in a messy bun and tired eyes. She worked as a cargo hauler. Her ship was called the Persistent Hope. It was old and small, but it was hers. She had spent 10 years paying for it. Today, her ship needed repairs. The engine was broken. She had landed on Galactic Trade Station, Omega 7, to fix it. The mechanic told her it would cost 600 credits. She had 847 credits in her account. That was all the money she had in the universe. After paying for repairs, she would have just enough for fuel to get back to Earth. Just enough. Nothing extra. No room for mistakes. G-Yeon walked through the station while she waited. The lower market district was the cheapest area. Aliens sold strange foods, broken machines, and things Ji-yeon could not even name. The air smelled like metal and spices. Then she heard the noise. It was a high sound. Like crying. Like babies crying. Ji-yeon followed the sound. She pushed through a crowd of tall aliens with gray skin. In the center of the plaza, there was a platform. On the platform stood a Rexian merchant. Rexians looked like giant insects. They had hard shells, many legs, and eyes that never blinked. This one wore expensive cloth and gold chains. He was a trader. A rich one. Next to him was a cage. Inside the cage were 7 small creatures. They looked like baby foxes, but their fur was bright blue. It shimmered like starlight. Their ears were too big for their heads. Their eyes were gold and round, and full of fear. They were cubs, babies, and they were crying. Ji-yeon's translator earpiece crackled. It turned the Rexian's words into English. Final auction, the merchant announced. 7 Valari cubs. Breeding program failure. No buyers, no interest. They will be destroyed at station close. Starting price, 800 credits. Anyone? Anyone at all? The crowd was silent. No one moved. No one cared. Ji-yeon felt her heart beating fast. She looked at the cubs. One of them, the smallest, was looking right at her. Its golden eyes were wet. It was shaking. No buyers, the Rexian said. He sounded bored. Very well. They will be incinerated tonight. Waste disposal fee will be wait. The word came out of Ji-yeon's mouth before she could stop it. Everyone turned to look at her. A human. A small, tired human woman in dirty work clothes. The Rexian's head tilted. You wish to buy? Ji-yeon's hands were shaking. She thought about her ship. She thought about the repairs. She thought about the fuel. She thought about Earth. Then she looked at the smallest cub again. It had pressed its tiny face against the cage bars. It was looking at her like she was its only hope. How much? Ji-yeon asked. 800 credits. As stated, Ji-yeon checked her account on her wrist device. 847 credits. If she paid 800, she would have 47 left. Not enough for repairs. Not enough for fuel. Not enough for anything. She would be trapped here. Alone. Broke. Far from home. The cub made a small sound. A tiny whimper. Ji-yeon closed her eyes. She thought about her mother back on Earth. Her mother always said the same thing. Do what is right, even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. Ji-yeon opened her eyes. She transferred the credits. The Rexian's eyes flickered with surprise. Transaction complete. The livestock is yours. He handed her the cage and walked away. He did not care. To him, it was just business. The crowd was murmuring. Ji-yeon heard pieces of their conversations through her translator. Stupid human. Why would she waste money on those things? Humans are strange creatures. She will regret this. Ji-yeon ignored them. She knelt down next to the cage. The 7 cubs looked at her. They had stopped crying. The smallest one reached a tiny paw through the bars. Ji-yeon touched it gently. The paw was soft and warm. "It is okay," she whispered. "You are safe now. I promise." She did not know how she would keep that promise. She had no money, no fuel, no way home. But she had made the choice, and she would not take it back. G-Y-E-O-N carried the cage through the station. Aliens stared at her. Some laughed. Some shook their heads. She did not care. When she reached her ship, she set the cage down gently. The persistent hope was not much. Just a small cargo vessel with a cramped living area. But it was warm and safe. G-Y-E-O-N opened the cage door. The cubs did not move at first. They were scared. They had probably been in cages their whole lives. "Come on," Ji-yeon said softly. "You can come out. No one will hurt you here." Slowly, one by one, the cubs stepped out. They sniffed the air. They looked around with wide eyes. The smallest one walked straight to Ji-yeon and climbed into her lap. G-Y-E-O-N laughed. It was a tired laugh, but it was real. "Hello, little one," she said. "I guess we are family now." She sat there on the floor of her ship, surrounded by 7 blue cubs. She had no money. She had no plan. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in a long time, Ji-yeon felt like she had done something that mattered. Outside, the space station continued its business. Millions of credits changed hands. Ships came and went. Aliens bought and sold things without thinking. But in one small ship, a human woman held 7 small lives in her arms. She had given everything she had to save them. And she did not regret it for 1 second. The smallest cub fell asleep in her lap. Its tiny chest rose and fell with each breath. Ji-yeon stroked its soft blue fur. "Do not worry," she whispered. "I will figure something out. I always do." She hoped that was true, because right now she had nothing but hope and 7 small cubs who needed her. That would have to be enough. 1 week passed on the space station. Ji-yeon had 47 credits left. That was not enough for anything useful. She could not repair a ship. She could not buy fuel. She could not go home. So she worked. Every morning, Ji-yeon woke up early. She left the cubs on her ship with food and water. Then she walked through the station looking for jobs. She cleaned cargo holds for alien merchants. She carried heavy boxes. She scrubbed floors. She did any work she could find. The pay was bad. Most aliens did not want to hire a human. They thought humans were weak and strange. But Ji-yeon did not give up. She worked harder than anyone. At night, she came back to her ship. The cubs were always waiting for her. They jumped and ran around her feet. They made happy sounds. They were glad to see her. Ji-yeon smiled every time. No matter how tired she was, the cubs made her happy. She gave them names. Human names mixed with Korean words. The biggest cub was brave and bold. She named him Bile, which meant star. The second cub was calm and gentle. She named him Haru, which meant day. The third cub was always following his brothers. She named him Duri, which meant 2. The fourth cub was graceful and quick. She named her Nabi, which meant butterfly. The fifth cub loved to explore everything. She named her Bomb, which meant spring. The sixth cub was quiet and thoughtful. She named her Dal, which meant moon. And the smallest cub, the one who had looked at her first, she named Kukum. It meant dream. Kkum was special. She followed Ji-yeon everywhere. She slept next to Ji-yeon every night. She was small and weak, but her eyes were bright and full of love. G-Y EON learned more about the cubs from the station database. They were called Velari. Their home planet had been destroyed 50 years ago. A war had burned everything. Most Velari died. The survivors tried to rebuild, but there were too few of them. These 7 cubs were from a breeding program. Scientists had tried to save the species, but the program failed. The cubs were considered defective. Not good enough. So they were sent to be sold or destroyed. G-YEON felt angry when she read this. How could anyone call these beautiful creatures defective? They were perfect. They were alive. That was enough. On the 8th day, something changed. G-YEON was scrubbing the floor of a cargo bay. Her back hurt. Her hands were red and sore. She was thinking about dinner. She only had enough credits for cheap food paste. The cubs needed better food, but she could not afford it. Then a shadow fell over her. G-YEON looked up. A massive alien stood in front of her. He was reptilian, with green scales and yellow eyes. He wore a military uniform covered in medals. 2 armed guards stood behind him. Ji-yeon's heart beat faster. She knew who this was. Everyone on the station knew. Admiral Torvax, commander of the Hegemony Fleet, one of the most powerful beings in this sector of the galaxy. "You are the human," Torvax said. His voice was deep like thunder. G-YEON stood up slowly. "Yes, I am Ji-yeon Park. I have heard about you." Torvax looked at her with his cold reptilian eyes. "You spent your last credits on condemned animals. You trapped yourself here. You work like a slave to feed them." Ji-yeon lifted her chin. "Yes, I did. Why?" The question hung in the air. Ji-yeon thought about it. She had asked herself the same thing many times. "Because they needed help," she said finally. "And I could help them. So I did." Torvax stared at her for a long moment. His face showed no emotion. Reptilians were hard to read. "Your species confuses me," he said. "You had passage home, safety, comfort. You chose to give it up for 7 small creatures who will probably die anyway. This is not logical." Ji-yeon felt a flash of anger. Maybe not, but it was right. Right? Torvax tilted his head. "What does that mean?" "It means—" Ji-yeon paused. How could she explain? "It means that some things are more important than logic. More important than money or safety. Those cubs were going to die. They were scared and alone. Someone had to help them. But why you? You are one small human. You cannot save everyone." "No," Ji-yeon agreed. "I cannot save everyone. But I could save them. 7 lives. That matters. Every life matters." Torvax was silent. His yellow eyes studied her like she was a puzzle he could not solve. Then he did something strange. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a data chip. He held it out to her. "What is this?" Ji-yeon asked. 10,000 credits. Enough for your repairs and fuel. Enough to go home." Ji-yeon stared at the chip. Her hands were shaking. "Why? Why would you give me this?" "I do not know," Torvax said. And he sounded honestly confused. "I have conquered planets. I have destroyed fleets. I have never given money to a stranger, but—" He paused. "Something about you is different. Something I do not understand." He pressed the chip into her hand. "Go home, human. Take your cubs. Live your life." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Perhaps I will understand someday. What makes your kind do these things?" He walked away. His guards followed. Ji-yeon stood alone in the cargo bay, holding 10,000 credits in her shaking hand. That night, Ji-yeon sat on her ship with the cubs around her. Kukum was in her lap as always. The others were playing and tumbling over each other. Ji-Yan looked at the credit chip. She could go home now. She could take the cubs to Earth. They could start a new life. But something else had happened today. Something bigger than money. An alien warlord, a being of power and violence, had been moved by her choice. He had not understood it, but he had been changed by it. Ji-Yan realized something important. Her decision to save the cubs was not just about 7 small lives. It was about something larger, something that could spread. She did not know it yet, but her story was just beginning. And the whole galaxy was about to hear it. Ji-Yan did not leave the station right away. She used some of the credits to repair her ship. She bought good food for the cubs. She bought medicine and blankets and toys. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. But something strange was happening around her. Aliens were looking at her differently. Before, they had ignored her or laughed at her. Now they watched her with curious eyes. They whispered when she walked past. They pointed at her. Ji-Yan did not understand why until Haru showed her. Haru, the calm and gentle cub, had learned to use her ship computer. He was smart. All the cubs were smart, but Haru was the quickest learner. One evening, he pulled up a video on the screen. It was a video of Ji-Yan at the auction, buying the cubs. Someone had recorded it. And now it was everywhere. The video had been shared millions of times across the galaxy. News stations were talking about it. Aliens were arguing about it. Everyone had an opinion. Human woman spends last credits on condemned animals. Is this courage or stupidity? The strange compassion of the human species. Ji-Yan watched the comments scroll past. Some aliens called her a fool. Others called her a hero. Most were just confused. They did not understand why anyone would make such a choice. But something else was happening too. Some aliens were inspired. A young alien on a farming planet saw the video. She went to her local shelter and adopted 3 sick animals that no one wanted. A merchant on a trading post saw the video. He lowered his prices so poor families could afford food. A soldier in a distant fleet saw the video. He refused to follow an order to destroy a civilian ship. Small acts of kindness. Small moments of courage. All because one human woman had made a choice. Ji-Yan did not know about most of these things. She was busy taking care of 7 cubs on a small ship. But the ripples of her choice were spreading across the stars. 3 weeks after the auction, a ship arrived at the station. It was old and worn, like it had traveled a very long way. When it landed, a single passenger stepped out. She was a Valari. Ji-Yan had never seen an adult Valari before. This one was old. Her blue fur had turned silver with age. Her golden eyes were clouded. She walked slowly with a wooden cane. But when she saw Ji-Yan and the cubs, she stopped. Her whole body went still. Then she fell to her knees and began to cry. Ji-Yan ran to her. "Are you okay? What is wrong?" The old Valari looked up at her. Tears streamed down her furry face. "I thought they were all gone," she whispered. "I thought I was the last one. I thought our children were dead." Ji-Yan understood. This was a Valari elder, one of the few survivors. "I am called Grandmother Soft Voice," the old one said. "I traveled 3 weeks to find you. When I saw the video, I could not believe it. 7 cubs. 7 of our children, alive." The cubs had gathered around. They had never seen one of their own kind before. They sniffed at the old Valari with curiosity. Grandmother Soft Voice touched each one gently. She said their names. She counted them. 7. "You saved our future," she said to Ji-Yan. "You saved everything." Ji-Yan helped the old Valari stand. "I only did what was right. No." Grandmother Soft Voice shook her head. You did what no one else would do. In all the galaxy, with all its powerful beings, only one small human stopped to help. That is not normal. That is special. They sat together on Ji-Yan's ship. Grandmother's soft voice told stories about the Valari home world. She described the purple forests and the singing rivers. She talked about the old days, before the war destroyed everything. The cubs listened with wide eyes. They were learning about their own people for the first time. G-YEO learned something too. The Valari had been a peaceful species. They had no weapons, no armies. When the war came, they could not fight back. They could only run and hide. Most did not survive. The breeding program had been a last hope. Scientists from other species tried to help. But the program was expensive, and no one wanted to pay for it. When the money ran out, the cubs were labeled as failures and sold off. They called our children defective, Grandmother's soft voice said bitterly, because they did not grow fast enough. Because they did not behave the way the scientists wanted. They threw away living souls like garbage. Ji-Yan felt the anger rise in her chest. That is wrong. Yes, but no one cared. Until you. That night, Ji-Yuan received a message on her ship computer. It was official. It had a legal seal. She read it 3 times to make sure. She understood. The Vrexian Trade Consortium was suing her. They claimed that her actions had embarrassed their business. They said she had implied that their practices were immoral. They wanted the cubs returned as stolen merchandise. G-YEON stared at the screen. Her hands were cold. If she lost this case, they would take the cubs away. They would kill them. She could not let that happen. She would not let that happen. Ji-Yan sat down at her computer. She sent a message to every human ship in the sector. She sent a message to every human colony. She sent a message to Earth. The message was simple. I need help. They want to take the cubs. I need lawyers. I need support. Please. Then she waited. The responses came faster than she expected. Humans from across the galaxy answered her call. Some sent money. Some sent legal advice. One sent something even better. I am coming, the message said. Do not worry. I never lose. It was signed by Dongwook Kim, the best human liar in the galaxy. G-YEON looked at the cubs sleeping in their beds. Com was curled up next to her pillow, snoring softly. They want to fight, Ji-Yan whispered. Then we will give them one. She was not alone anymore. Humans were coming. Her people were coming, and they would stand together. The trial was held on Tessera, a neutral planet where the Galactic Arbitration Court met. It was a world of white stone buildings and endless gardens. Beautiful and cold. G-YEON arrived with the cubs, Grandmother's soft voice, and her lawyer. Dong Wook Kim was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore a simple black suit. He did not look impressive, but everyone in the legal world knew his name. He had fought impossible cases and won. He had faced the most powerful corporations in the galaxy and beaten them. Do not worry, he told Ji-Yan as they entered the courthouse. I have studied the case. We have a good chance. Only a good chance? Ji-Yan asked. Dong Wook smiled. I said that to be humble. We are going to destroy them. The courtroom was huge. Hundreds of aliens filled the seats. Reporters floated cameras in the air. This case had become famous. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. The Vrexian Trade Consortium had sent their best lawyers. 5 of them. They were tall and cold and wore expensive clothes. They looked at Ji-Yan like she was an insect. The judge was not a living creature. It was an ancient being made of pure crystal energy. It had no body, only a glowing shape that floated above the bench. It was called the Arbiter, and it had judged cases for 10,000 years. This court is now in session, the arbiter announced. His voice echoed through the room. The Vrexian Trade Consortium versus Geon Park of Earth. The matter: ownership of 7 Volari specimens. Geon flinched at the word specimens. They were not specimens. They were children. The Vrexian lawyer stood first. His name was Merchant Advocate Crix. He was the most famous Vrexian lawyer alive. The facts are simple, Crix said. The consortium legally owned the Volari cubs. They were purchased through proper channels. When they failed to sell, they were scheduled for disposal. This is normal business practice. He walked slowly in front of the judge. The human woman purchased the cubs at auction. This was legal. However, her actions afterwards caused harm to our business. She spread the video of the auction. She implied that our practices were wrong. She damaged our reputation. Crix pointed at Jiyan. We demand compensation. And we demand the return of our property so we can dispose of it properly. The crowd murmured. Jiyan felt sick. Dong dash. Wook stood slowly. He did not look worried. The prosecution uses the word property, he said calmly. They call these cub specimens and merchandise. But I would like to ask a simple question. He turned to face the whole courtroom. What makes something property? What makes something merchandise? The law says that objects can be owned. But can a living soul be an object? He pulled out a datapad. Galactic Code 7.41 states clearly, any being capable of forming emotional bonds, demonstrating individual personality, and showing capacity for suffering cannot be classified as merchandise. This law exists because we, as a galactic civilization, decided that some things are more important than profit. Dongwook looked at the Vrexian lawyers. The Volari cubs are not objects. They have names. They have feelings. They love and fear and hope. They are people. And people cannot be property. Crix laughed. It was an ugly sound. Pretty words. But where is your proof? How do you prove these animals have feelings? Dongwook smiled. I am glad you asked. He turned to the judge. I would like to call a witness. Kukum of the Volari. The courtroom exploded with noise. Aliens shouted and argued. The Vrexians protested. But the arbiter silenced everyone with a wave of crystal light. The witness will approach, the arbiter said. Ji-Yeon's heart was pounding. She knelt down next to Kukum. You do not have to do this, she whispered. If you are scared, I will understand. Kukum looked at her with those golden eyes. Then she licked Ji-Yeon's hand and walked toward the witness stand. She was so small. Just a baby, really. But she walked with her head held high. Dong dash. Wok knelt down to her level. Hello, Kukum. Do you know why we are here today? Kukum was silent for a moment. The courtroom was completely quiet. Everyone was watching. Then Kukum spoke. Family. It was one word. Just one word. But it changed everything. The word was in Galactic Common, the language that all species understood. Ji-Yeon had taught Kukum this word. She had taught all the cubs. But this was the first time Kukum had spoken it out loud in public. The courtroom was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Dongwook nodded slowly. Can you say more, Kukum? What does family mean to you? Kukum looked at Ji-Yeon. Then she looked at her brothers and sisters. Then she looked at grandmother's soft voice. Family is warm, Kukum said slowly. Her voice was small but clear. Family is safe. Ji-Yeon is family. She saved us. She loves us. We love her. Tears were streaming down Ji-Yeon's face. She could not stop them. Dong-Wok turned to the judge. The prosecution says these are property. But property cannot speak. Property cannot love. Property cannot understand the concept of family. He pointed at Kakum. This child understands. She knows what was going to happen to her. She knows she was going to die. And she knows who saved her. She's not merchandise. She is a person. A small person, but a person. The arbiter was silent for a long moment. Its crystal form pulsed with light. Then it spoke. The court finds in favor of the defendant. The Valari cubs are hereby classified as sentient beings under Galactic Code 7.41. They cannot be owned, bought, or sold. They are free. The courtroom erupted. Aliens cheered and shouted. The Vrexian lawyers stood in shock, but the arbiter was not finished. Furthermore, the Vrexian Trade Consortium is found guilty of trafficking in sentient beings. This is a crime under galactic law. The consortium will pay full reparations to the Valari people for 100 years of illegal trafficking. The Vrexians tried to protest, but no one listened. The case was over. They had lost. Jian ran to Kakum and picked her up. She held her tight. The other cubs ran to her too, and soon she was surrounded by blue fur and happy sounds. Grandmother Soft Voice was crying. Dom Wook was smiling. Even Admiral Torvax, watching from the back of the courtroom, nodded his head slowly. "You did it," Jian whispered to Kakum. "You saved yourself. You saved everyone." Kakum snuggled into her arms. "Family," she said again, and that was all that mattered. 5 years passed. The galaxy had changed. Not completely. There was still war and greed and cruelty. But something was different now. Something small but important. People talked about the human woman. They told her story to their children. They used her name when they wanted to describe kindness. Be like the human, parents would say. Help those who cannot help themselves. Jian Park had become a symbol. She did not want to be famous. She did not care about fame. But the galaxy had decided to remember her, and there was nothing she could do about it. The Valari had been given a new home. After the trial, many species felt guilty about what had happened. The Valari had been ignored for 50 years. Their planet had been destroyed, and no one had helped them. The trial made everyone see their shame. A coalition of 12 species came together. They found an empty planet with purple forests and clear rivers. It was not the same as the old Valari homeworld, but it was beautiful. They named it New Velara. The 7 cubs were not cubs anymore. They had grown into young adults. Each one had found their own path. Bile, the brave one, became a diplomat. He traveled between worlds, speaking for the Valari people. He was respected everywhere he went. Haru, the gentle one, studied human literature. He fell in love with her stories. He wrote papers comparing Valari poetry with human novels. Scholars from many species read his work. Duri, the follower, became a pilot. He flew rescue ships, saving people from disasters. He never forgot what it felt like to be saved. Nabi, the graceful one, became a dancer and artist. Her paintings showed the old Valari world, rebuilt from Grandmother Soft Voice's memories. Museums displayed her work across the galaxy. Bomb, the explorer, became a scientist. She studied planets and stars. She searched for other species that needed help, so no one else would be forgotten like the Valari. The quiet one became a singer. Her songs were sad and beautiful. They told the story of the Valari people. When she sang, even aliens who had never cried before felt tears in their eyes. And Kakum? Couch stayed with G-Yeon. She became Ji-Yeon's co-pilot on the Persistent Hope. They traveled together across the galaxy, carrying cargo and sometimes carrying something more important, hope. Wherever they went, people knew them. The human and her Valari partner. The woman who spent her last credits to save 7 condemned souls. Today, was a special day. G-Y-EON stood on New Valara for the first time. The planet was beautiful. Purple trees stretched toward a pink sky. A gentle wind carried the smell of flowers. Thousands of beings had gathered for the founding ceremony. Not just Valari, but aliens from dozens of worlds. They had come to witness history. Admiral Torvax was there. He had retired from the military 3 years ago. Now he spent his time giving speeches about human values. It was strange, everyone said. A reptilian warlord talking about kindness and compassion. But Torvax did not care what anyone thought. He found Ji-Yeon in the crowd. "You started something," he said. His voice was softer than it used to be. "I did not understand it at first. This thing you humans have. This need to help, even when it costs you everything." Ji-Yeon smiled. "And now?" "Now I think I understand a little." Torvax looked at the crowd. Young aliens from many species wore shirts with human words on them. Words like hope and kindness and love. "Your species is strange. You are small and weak and short-lived. But you have something powerful. Something that spreads. What is that?" Torvax thought for a moment. "You make others want to be better. Not through force. Not through fear. Just by being who you are." He put a heavy hand on her shoulder. An entire generation now asked themselves, what would a human do? That is your legacy. That is what you have given to the galaxy. Ji-Yeon did not know what to say. She had never wanted to be special. She had just bought some cubs because they were going to die. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the smallest choices were the ones that mattered most. The ceremony began. The 7 cubs, now grown, walked onto the stage. They would speak to the galaxy about their people, their history, and their future. But first, they called Ji-Yeon to join them. She walked onto the stage slowly. She was older now. Her hair had some gray in it. Her hands were rough from years of work. But she stood tall. By-EOL spoke first. "This is Ji-Yeon Park, human, cargo hauler. Our mother." The crowd roared. Aliens cheered and clapped and stomped their feet. Kukum stepped forward. She was still the smallest of the 7, but her voice was strong. 5 years ago, Ji-Yeon was a stranger. She had no reason to help us. She had no connection to us. We were just 7 small creatures in a cage, waiting to die. Kukum looked at Ji-Yeon. Her golden eyes were full of love. She gave everything she had to save us. Not because she would gain anything. Not because anyone asked her to. Just because it was right. Kukum took Ji-Yeon's hand. "Humans have a word," Kukum continued. "They call it compassion. It means feeling the pain of others and wanting to help. Most species think this is weakness. But they are wrong." She raised Ji-Yeon's hand high. "Compassion is the strongest force in the universe. It can change hearts. It can change minds. It can change the galaxy." The crowd was silent. Everyone was listening. Today, we celebrate the founding of New Valara. But we also celebrate something bigger. We celebrate the choice of one human woman. One choice that saved our species. One choice that inspired millions. Kukum turned to face Ji-Yeon directly. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." Ji-Yeon could not hold back her tears anymore. She pulled Kukum into a hug. The other 6 gathered around them. 7 blue figures and 1 human woman, holding each other on the stage. The crowd cheered so loud that the purple trees shook. Later, when the ceremony was over, Ji-Yeon sat alone on a hill. She watched the sun set over New Valara. It painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Kukum found her there. "What are you thinking about?" Kukum asked. G-Yeon smiled. "I was thinking about that day. When I first saw you in the cage. You were so small. So scared. I remember," Kukum said. I remember looking at you. I did not know who you were, but somehow I knew you would help us. How did you know? Cockham sat down next to her. I do not know. Maybe I saw something in your eyes. Something kind. Something that said, I will not let you die alone. They sat together as the stars came out. The same stars Ji Yeon had traveled through for years. But they looked different now. Brighter. More hopeful. What happens next? Cockham asked. Ji Yeon put her arm around her smallest child. We keep going, she said. We keep helping. We keep being kind. That is all we can do. Com leaned against her. That sounds good, she said. And it was done far across the galaxy, in 1,000 different worlds. Beings looked up at the stars. Some of them were thinking about the human woman who had changed everything with one small choice. Some of them were making choices of their own. Small choices. Kind choices. Human choices. And the ripples kept spreading. Forever.